Welcome back, everyone, to a brand new update on the solo queue tier list. My name is Sean, and I'll be filling in for this one while Dan is away on vacation. Now, we have had so many meta-shifting changes in patch 14.4, so there's a lot of moving parts on the tier list once again. Now, with the help of our challenger players and analyzing the most recent data, we're set to bring you guys a complete update on the solo queue tier list for every single role. Also, we are excited to announce we've done a massive update, adding all brand new courses for Season 14 on our website, SkillCapped.com. And if that's not enough, we upload 10 brand new Smurf commentaries every week where a challenger teaches you how to play every champion in the exact rank you're stuck in. The best part is you can try all this out completely risk-free. And if you don't rank up while actively using SkillCapped, you get your money back. No questions asked. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below to get the rank that you've always wanted in Season 14. 14.4 is really just Twisted Fate domination, as the champion is even being played in the top lane now and winning at an incredible rate. Now, TF was nerfed for this patch, but it was only the AP builds that were significantly hurt, and with top lane Twisted Fate, you're playing him AD. There's really nothing that melee champions can do against Twisted Fate with his point-and-click stun. As long as you can space decently in lane and just save your W for when the enemy tries to engage onto you, you're going to have a very easy time just bullying melee champions. Now, there is one matchup you should try to avoid though, and it's Jax. Since Twisted Fate's W is treated as an auto attack, Jax can actually dodge the spell completely by using his E. Other than that though, TF smashes meta picks like Darius, Garen, Mordekaiser, and Trundle, so he's a really great pickup in 14.4. This is probably going to be the last patch to where you can really abuse AD Twisted Fate, as there's no way Riot doesn't nerf him harder in 14.5 due to the fact he's top tier in 3 different roles. You're going to find Twisted Fate in the top lane OP tier for 14.4. So originally, we weren't super optimistic that the Renekton buffs would significantly affect his power level, but they've actually put him back in a pretty good spot. With the new build going around to where Renekton rushes Eclipse, and the fact that his healing ratio on Q was just buffed, the champ is fitting in pretty well. That AD ratio buff to Q is way more valuable when building an item like Eclipse, since it has so much AD. So with more players gravitating towards Eclipse in 14.4, it's helped out Renekton's overall standing even more. All in all, Renekton is back in a viable spot now for 14.4 as he's being pushed up into the top lane A tier. As much as we'd like to ignore the fact that ranged top laners exist, we can't be biased when making our tier list, and Vayne is just outperforming really hard in the top lane right now. Not only has her play rate seen a spike in 14.4, but her win rate has increased as well, which is one of the bigger indicators to a champion just being extremely powerful. The buffs to Terminus provided Vayne with a nice indirect boost, and she's in a phenomenal spot for both top and ADC. Similar to Twisted Fate, Vayne only has 1 or 2 matchups that give her issues right now, and Malphite is one of them. Mal can rush Frozen hard in the matchup, and come team fights, just completely isolate Vayne, so it's a good ban if you're thinking of playing Vayne top. Vayne will be moving up and joining Twisted Fate in the top lane OP tier for 14.4. So if we move on to having a look at the top lane tier list, the OP tiers see some reconstruction for mid-patch as we've got Twisted Fate, Vayne, and Urgot. Illaoi takes a nosedive down the tier list for mid-patch as the nerf to her tentacle damage has been way more harsh than we anticipated. The nerf shaved off about 4% from Illaoi's overall win rate, so she's most definitely no longer a priority pick any longer. Both Vayne and TF has seen a huge increase in popularity and win rate up in the top lane over the past patch, and we just can't ignore them any longer. Both champs are just such great blind picks right now, as there's very few champs that can actually beat them in lane, and they just get to scale up for free. As for Urgot, he is super strong right now with the Hullbreaker and Black Cleaver core, and it's been on the rise mainly due to many other top lane champs being negatively affected in recent patches. We've seen Aatrox, Illaoi, Yone, Jax, Fiora, and Trundle all lose power in one way or another, so Urgot just sneakily moves past them in priority now. Now, Riot intended for the K'Sante changes to be neutral power-wise, but they've actually led to the champion's decline in strength by a significant margin. Due to his 14.4 adjustments, K'Sante is no longer worth playing for solo queue and is being placed in our top lane C tier. Now, we focused on top lane Volibear when discussing his changes for the pre-patch tier list, but he's of course been positively influenced in the jungle role as well, and is in need of a push up the tier list. More movement speed on Volibear Q is absolutely amazing for jungle volley, as it allows him to close the gap quicker and pull off more successful ganks. Volibear jungle was a bottom dweller for what it seemed like an eternity, but he'll be getting a bump into A tier for 14.4. The Rek'Sai adjustments for patch 14.4 have turned out to be a bit of a disaster, as there are multiple bugs going around and the champion is not performing nearly as well as we'd hoped. Now, when we were covering the changes in the pre-patch tier list, one thing we didn't realize is that Rek'Sai would be losing her true damage proc on E when at max fury. Losing the true damage from E combined with less damage on W and less damage on R has left Rek'Sai in a pretty terrible spot, as the champion just lost so much DPS. There's already changes planned for patch 14.5 to help her out, but for now, we would recommend staying away, as Rek'Sai is being placed in the jungle C tier. The jungle tier list doesn't have as much movement as top lane for mid-patch, as OP tier stays the same with Briar and Bel'Veth. And Viego is one champion we're given a push up the jungle tier list, as he's been performing much better as Season 14 has rolled along. At the start of the season, Viego was overshadowed by champs like Graves, Nocturne, Lilia, and Brand, but now that all four of them have been nerfed, it's added more strength to the pick. Viego has now shot up to being the second most played jungler in the game, only behind Lee Sin, which is much higher compared to at the very start of the season, to where he was the 8th most played jungler. Overall, it was a very light patch for jungle, as Rek'Sai and Volibear were the only champions directly changed, so the meta has remained pretty stable. One of the biggest winners of patch 14.4 that kind of came out of nowhere has been Ahri. The buffs honestly didn't seem all that big, but they've led to Ahri's play rate and win rate spiking pretty massively this patch, and she's back to being one of the best solo queue mids. Indirect buffs to Malignance were also a factor in propelling Ahri up the tier list, as it's the item she likes to rush. A really strong build that's flying a bit under the radar that you can run on Ahri this patch is a Malignance rush into Lichbane's second. Lichbane has been pretty sleeper on Ahri for a few patches now, and just makes the champion a lot more forgiving and easy to execute. As for Ahri's tier list placement, she'll be moving up into the mid lane S tier. So it turns out that Riot threw in some last minute nerfs to AP Twisted Fate that we were not made aware of when making the pre-patch tier list, so let's have a look at them. Attack speed growth is down from 3 to 2.5%. WAP ratio has been lowered from 115 to 100%. EAP ratio is lowered as well from 50 to 40%. So it's just nerfs to AP Twisted Fate builds, which does hurt him for mid lane, but doesn't affect him much at all for top or ADC. It's kind of strange, because AD Twisted Fate has actually been what's overperforming in recent patches, so for Riot to nerf AP before AD is definitely a surprise. Regardless, these nerfs have brought mid lane Twisted Fate's power level down ever so slightly, so we've given him a minor adjustment on the tier list, moving him from OP into S. So for the mid lane meta right now, the big talking point of 14.4 is the takeover of Karma. Karma is now the most played mid laner in the game, while holding an incredibly high win rate at the same time, so she's without question super high priority. Karma mid is also extremely easy to pick up and see success with right away, so it makes her even better for the average player. Aurelion Sol has held up really well despite his 14.4 nerfs, and it looks like adjusting him from OP and into S was the correct call, as the champ is not super broken anymore, but he's still a top tier pick. Despite the repeated buffs to mage items in recent patches, champs like Orianna, Ziggs, Syndra, and Veigar are still struggling mightily to find their footing in Season 14. Ahri was kind of in the same spot last patch, until she got her direct buff, so it's likely Riot's just going to have to directly buff those mages if they want to bring any viability back to them. More commonly played in the top lane, but always a niche pick in the mid lane, being Jace, has seen a pretty nice boost this patch due to his buffs. Jace mid actually has the better win rate right now compared to top, as it's easier for him to thrive against the more squishy mid lane champs. So as a result of his buffs, Jace mid will be getting a pretty large push up the mid lane tier list, going from C into A tier. As of recent, there have been a ton of champions who were relatively niche in the past make a big push into the meta, and that's happening right now again with Senna ADC. The champion has actually held a very high win rate for a few patches now, but nobody really took notice until these past two patches. In 14.4, we've seen Senna's play rate nearly double in the ADC role, with her win rate remaining extremely high. It's not crit or on hit that's leading to this surge in power though, as lethality Senna is the most dominant build. It's the item combination of Ghost Blade and Opportunity that's leading to absolutely crazy results. All the movement speed you get from this build feels great for Senna, as she's able to space really well in fights and stay super mobile. This isn't even fasting Senna either, where she's paired with Tahm Kench. It's just straight up ADC Senna that's taking over the meta. For Senna's tier list placement, we'll be bumping her into OP for 14.4. For an update on Smolder, after his changes this patch, they've led to the champion losing a decent amount of power. Now, it's nothing too crazy, but enough that it forces us into moving Smolder down the tier list from S into A tier. With the changes this patch, this hybrid build has become significantly weaker. AD builds are now outperforming pretty heavily, with the core of Essence Reaver, Spear of Shojin, and Rapid Fire Cannon shooting up in popularity and leading to the best results. Now, what was really nice about the hybrid build is just how tanky you'd be able to get, and you're still able to get some of that by running Spear of Shojin on your AD builds. Shojin is currently winning more than Quick Blades on Smolder in the second item slot, so if you've only been running Quick Blades, definitely give Shojin a go. So here's how we've got the ADC tier list constructed for patch 14.4. OP tier is locked down by 3 champions with Vayne, Twisted Fate, and Senna. It's kind of wild right now that we have 2 champions who are OP tier for multiple roles, being Vayne and Twisted Fate. Take advantage of AD Twisted Fate while you can, because honestly, it's very likely to be nerfed in 14.5. Get it while you can. It's cool to see new picks like this pop up though, so let's hope Riot doesn't completely kill the champion, but he's definitely way stronger than he should be at the moment. Swapping spots on the tier list for the mid-patch update will be Kai'Sa and Varus. One thing we didn't factor in enough for the pre-patch tier list when considering Kai'Sa's power for 14.4 were the indirect buffs to Terminus. Terminus is looking really nice in the second item slot for Kai'Sa right now, so the buffs have been pretty valuable for her since you're going to be able to complete the item in most games. Champs that build Terminus 3rd or 4th aren't impacted as much by the buffs, but as a second item user, Kai'Sa has been a bigger winner and is being pushed up into the ADC B tier. As for Varus, he's honestly not worth playing after his nerf in this patch, as there are so many other stronger ADCs to choose from, so you're going to find Varus down to the C tier. Support was the role that we were pretty spot on with in our pre-patch predictions, so there's not too much to discuss in regards to the tier list. It didn't take a rocket scientist to realize that those Maokai nerfs would do very little to actually lower his power level, as he remains the most OP support in 14.4. Maokai's win rate only dropped 1% due to the nerfs, so he's still riding upwards of a ridiculous 54% win rate this patch. We had moved Camille up into the support S tier for pre-patch, and as the patch has progressed, we're liking what we're seeing on the analytical side of things. Play rate has gone up quite a bit in this patch, with the champ actually winning more in low elo than in high elo. Now, who knows if Camille's support is actually going to stick around and cement herself as a commonly played support, but for now, she's a great niche pickup if you like playing aggro supports. Other than Maokai, Zyra was one other support nerfed for this patch, but the changes weren't significant enough to alter her tier list placement, and she remains in the S tier. Bard, on the other hand, did see a pretty big drop in power due to his nerfs, and our original assessment, dropping Bard down into the A tier for pre-patch, turns out to have been spot on. And remember, if you truly want to improve and rank up fast, head on over to SkillCapped.com. We just finished a massive update adding all brand new courses for Season 14. We even upload 10 new Smurf commentaries every week, where a challenger teaches you how to play every champion in the exact rank you're stuck in. And remember, you can try all this out risk-free. If you don't rank up while actively using SkillCapped, you get your money back, no questions asked. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below to get the rank you've always wanted this season. So there you have it, guys. A complete update on the solo queue tier list for every single role as we reach the midway point of 14.4. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you back soon.